As you all know, I love weird controllers, and we've covered quite a few in the past. Now, normally when we talk about them, a lot of them have been the Hori controllers that released for the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2. There's a bunch there. But another company that has made, honestly, probably even weirder things is ascii. And today we're taking a look at a controller that I didn't even know existed until about a week ago when I found it on the internet and had to order right away. This is the ascii 360 sphere controller for the original PlayStation. I don't think this has been never opened. I mean, it's clearly the box has taken quite a bit of damage, but it is complete in box, and we're gonna open up and check it out. Now, the idea behind this controller, as I've gathered, is that this was actually made before the PlayStation DualShock, and so people were trying to find new ways to actually handle more refined control for games that had 3D movement. So in the case of this one, you can even see on the front of the box it says right here, optimized for NFL Blitz, Forsaken, and Duke Nukem Time to Kill. Classic. By the way, guys, I got a lot more actual controller reviews coming up, not just weird things like this. Although, if you love weird stuff like this, there are going to be more of those in the future as well. So make sure you don't miss out on any of that, and subscribe. So, yeah, interesting, strange idea. Let's open it up and see how this actually works. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's even got the little styrofoam stuff. This might have been actually... Yeah, this might be the first time it's been opened. I mean, the box clearly is not pristine, but it's still got twist ties and stuff. It is almost free. Oh, wait, there's one last one holding the ball in place. Okay, now that we're free of all that, we're gonna wait for that train. Oh yeah, this thing is weird. It kind of reminds me a little bit, I'm getting vibes of a couple different weird controllers that have come out in the past. While I'm sure this is far from intentional, it actually vaguely reminds me of the insane shape of the Wu-Tang Clan controller that came out, I think for PlayStation as well. That thing was nuts. It also reminds me a little bit of the early concept art for the PS3, where it was the Boomerang controller, because it was that same kind of silver finish and way more extreme kind of handles, like what we're seeing right here. Obviously, it doesn't have the shoulder buttons for the side, because this is in the way. So instead, they moved the L1 and L2 here in the front, giving us the 6-button setup. Triggers that feel really weird for R1 and R2. Whoa. Oh, this one's stuck. That's gonna be annoying later. And then we have this thing, the sphere. I don't know how this is supposed to control, like at all. And in case you're curious, the proper name actually is that this is the Spaceball Power Sensor. There's a bunch of symbols on it too. 3 waves here, 2 waves on top, 2 dots, 1 dot, or like a target symbol on the sides. I don't know if that actually means anything or it's just a style choice. Oh, so I think it's not meant to turn or spin, it's just angling the ball different ways. It's like a giant, less efficient analog stick? Oh, that's weird, because you're not moving, like you can kind of see there's the little tiny stick right here that goes into the sphere. You're not moving that, you're moving the sphere on that. So you're just kind of wiggling this around. That is bizarre. Wow. So next step, I'm gonna see if this came with instructions, and if not, we get to figure out even more stuff, but I'm gonna see if this will actually work with our PS1 to PS4 converter, and maybe try playing a game with this, somehow. So to put this thing through a little test run, we have set it up on our PS4. This is an adapter we've used a couple times for some of our other weird controllers. It just allows you to plug in any older PlayStation style controller into the PS4 with normally fine results. Obviously, depending on what the controller in mind is, sometimes it's not going to translate super cleanly, and this is one of those situations. So I've got it running right now, and one of my first questions I had with this controller was how I'm actually supposed to use it, or really hold it, I guess. There's kind of an initial thought that's maybe like I hold it like a regular controller and then I can use just a couple fingers to control the ball. That kind of works, but really the way it's designed, it feels like you're supposed to have more of like an actual full grip on the top like this. And it kind of depends on what you're doing in game. So after a couple tests of trying it out a little bit in God of War, here's a few little ways of control that I've discovered. When I've got it in mode 1, I can tilt the stick forward or back, and that works like a normal up-down input. Where things get interesting though is that certain other motions and controls seem to be based on where you're also applying pressure to the controller. For instance, while I'm in this mode, if I put my fingers on the two little kind of spaces on the front and back, it detects that I want to go left and right, so I can move the camera that way. If I'm holding it just by the top and applying pressure wherever I want, it doesn't really cleanly enter like that. At all, actually. So there's a heavy dependence on having relatively few points of contact with it. You need to have pressure applied to these specific zones and then push whether you want to go forward, backward, tilting it, turning it. Those are the kind of things that it looks for what kind of inputs we want to have. And this gets a little crazier depending on the mode I'm in. For instance, when I go into mode 2, there's a little more camera-focused control going on here. It acts a lot more like the right stick. I can tilt the ball, and that's going to make it turn left and right. I can push forward with it up and down, and that'll cause the camera to move up and down. And then in this particular configuration, I do get the left and right inputs of the D-pad or left analog by tilting it sideways. So I can walk sideways with Kratos, I just can't do much else right now. It's an interesting idea to see how with this single ball we are getting actually 3 axes of control, the idea that you're actually moving in a full 3D movement. Really, I think the easiest way to kind of picture this in your mind if you're still wondering how exactly this works, picture a regular thumbstick, right? And on that, you can go forward, backward, left, and right. You can move on 2 planes. But with this, they're adding the ability of also twisting the stick head, which adds a third kind of motion and thus giving actual full 3D control, which is the entire idea. It's a cool concept in theory. It's definitely not as intuitive as twin sticks are. I mean, with those, sure, you're not necessarily getting actual true 3D control, but you're using 2 sticks to do 2 different kinds of control at once, being able to move a camera, looking left and right. You can use both of those to control different aspects of in-game to achieve that kind of full motion. With this, you're trying to do that all at once with 1 input, which is really weird. Now, clearly, God of War was not designed for this, and the games that it lists that it's great for, I don't own any copies of, but it does have a demo disc that's meant to help kind of showcase how you're supposed to use this controller. So let's see if we can get that up and running. So I brought up the PS2 we have around the office, hooked it up to our TV using some HDMI cables that we got from Hyperkin. Awesome little thing, got it set up, ready to go, and I launched the game that came with this, and clearly something is not working right. It does say start select to reset. Maybe that'll fix it. I'm just gonna go for it. Okay, so we couldn't get the actual tutorial game to work right because, well, you saw. But I did spend some more time messing around with the controller, and it really is interesting how it works. And it's actually a little different than how I earlier thought it did and explained. So I wasn't entirely wrong. There are ideas like how you're moving the sphere around, twisting, turning, that kind of thing. But it's actually also heavily focused on how you move the sphere itself in just sort of the general concept of space. Lifting it and pushing it down also counts as an input. Pushing it forward is actually a different thing than tilting the whole stick forward, because tilting it forward actually reads like you're rotating it, whereas just straight up pushing it forward is moving the ball forward. So it actually has this insane number of different control inputs, and honestly, I'm actually really surprised how many different ones it can differentiate for how old of a controller it is. I mean, really, for its time, this is actually a really interesting and cool form of control. It's just not actually that great of one. I think the idea is really innovative, and if you had very specific games designed for it and around it, it could end up being something that is a very distinct, interesting, and unique gaming experience. But when it comes to something that's more actually generally useful, the idea that took over of having a twin stick design like we see on so many controllers today just ends up being a way more intuitive, easier system. Because even after spending a lot of time playing with this and trying to get a better grasp and feeling of it, I got to the point where, yeah, I could play a game, I just would never actually want to spend a long period of time using this, because while I can figure it out, it's still never quite as intuitive and doesn't give you nearly as much precise control, and it's also very draining on your hand to use it. I actually started getting way bad hand cramps after a few hours because just all the constant pressure I'm exerting in different directions, it just adds up and is not super comfortable. I guess what I'm saying is, I understand why this didn't work out, but I love that this actually exists and it was a concept that was tried, because this comes out of that very early era of video game consoles where we kind of started getting an idea of how a regular controller should look after we saw things like on the original Nintendo, the SNES, but before we got to the idea of using twin sticks, how are we going to accomplish better, more refined control? And this is definitely one way we could have solved that issue, just not the best one. I don't think this is going to dethrone my absolute favorite actually weird controller as far as things like, the chainsaw and the slime controller, but as far as actual innovative old designs and ways that they try to solve problems before we got actual better solutions, this is an awesome piece of history.